Hello and welcome back to Maths Plus. Today we're doing Leaving Cert Higher Level Maths. And let's look at the first question. So we have find the set of real values for the quadratic inequality. So we have 2x squared plus x minus 15 is greater or equal to 0. So we need the set of real values. So let's solve the actual equation at the start. So we're going to factorize 2x squared. So we could use the quadratic formula, but let's do factorization here. So let's put 2x on one side and x on the other side. All right, so we need the two numbers which will multiply to 15 and will also give us a result with the cross multipliers of 1. So let's look at the numbers here. So let's say we'll go with 3 by 2 and 5 by 1. So if we do 3 by 2, we will get 6x, and 5 by 1 will give 5x. So we can put a plus 6 and a minus 5 to give us a result of plus 1. So we have the result of the cross multipliers. So that negative 5 will go here and the positive 3 will go over here, which creates the plus 6. Right, I know students can do this, but some students may struggle with factorization. Now we're going to retain our inequality symbol here, okay, and we're going to have to check that at the very end. All right, so the first factor, 2x minus 5, will give a value of a root of 2x is greater or equal to plus 5, and x is greater or equal to 5 over 2. Okay, so that's one option. And the other side then, x plus 3 is greater or equal to 0, and also therefore the root value would be greater or equal to negative 3. All right, so these are our two results. So it's not conclusive at this stage. So if you're doing an exam, you will get 5 marks to get the two values. And to put them in the correct set, we will get another 5 marks. Okay, so let's look at this as if it was a sketch. Okay, so this will make sense now. So if we do a quadratic, and let's say we put in our roots, 5 over 2, plus and then negative 3. All right, so if we look at the quadratic formula here, it's going to be positive, so it's U-shaped. So go through our two roots. All right, so now we're going to decide on where the range will actually lie. So this describes the set of values which are greater than 0. So there are set of output values which are greater than 0, which will be above the x-axis. So they're greater than 0, greater or equal to 0 up here. And they will correspond to the values down here on the x-axis. So this side is the lower limit, and this side is part of the higher limit. So now let's put all this together in a range. So x is going to be greater than the positive, greater or equal to 5 over 2. And you guessed it, less than or equal to, so the less than is on the side of the x, and negative 3 goes over here. Okay, so it makes sense. So I'd advise students to take your time, do the sketch, okay, and work it out logically, and you will get the extra 5 marks. Okay. Okay, so guessing is not good. The next one is with 3 variables. So let's skip that and we're going to go on to a question 2. So we have a cubic equation here and we want to find the irrational solution in the form of a plus b root c. So this means it's third form. So we may be using the quadratic formula here, more than likely, unless we can actually factorize, okay, the quadratic. So let's look at the factor theorem first of all. Because whenever you have a cubic here and you have a solution and factors, let's describe the factor theorem, because it will give us the governing equation and it will make sense. So in the junior cert, you have two factors which will multiply to give you a quadratic. In the leaving cert, you may have a factor, let's say x plus a, multiplied by a quadratic, x squared. Let's put in bx plus c, just as a general. Okay, and then over here then we can have a cubic, x cubed, okay, minus 3x, okay, everything above. Let's write it out here. All right, so we don't have that much information at the start, except that a, b, and c are elements of integers, okay? So first of all, we have to get one of the roots, which will be converted to one of the factors. All right, so how do we get a root and a factor? Well, we have to do trial and error at the start. So it should work out. Okay, so if we start off with x is equal to plus or minus 1, and then keep going until we get a solution. So let's do plus 1. So it will be, let's substitute in here 1 across the line. So if we look at it over here now, we will have 1 cubed minus 3 brackets 1 squared minus 9 by 1 plus 11, and that will give us 1 minus 3 minus 9 plus 11, which is 12 minus 12, which is equal to 0. Therefore, x is equal to 1 is a root. So let's describe that. So that's the first part. So therefore, we can say that x minus 1 is equal to 0, which is a factor. All right, so we have a factor. So we have this part of the factor theorem, and now we're ready to actually do some long division. So let's make some room for the long division. So you can see there that the factor theorem, it makes sense, because once we divide across now by the root, the x minus 1, we can get the quadratic. So what I'm talking about there is, when we have this, we will divide that into the cubic, okay, and then that will give us the quadratic. Okay, so let's get doing the long division. So again, this is an essential skill in the leaving cert. Might be optional in the junior cert, but it's part of a lot of the questions. So you've got to be able to do the long division. So x minus 1 is the factor. We're going to do long division into our cubic up here. X cubed minus 3x squared minus 9x plus 11. So let's do this real quick. So x into the first term, x into x cubed is x squared. Let's multiply those two now by x squared, and will give us x cubed minus 3 minus x minus 1x squared. And now we change the sign, so we go to subtract, and that will give us minus x cubed plus. So you can change the color, okay, when you're changing the sign, so you keep track. That's the main source of error in these questions, is the sign. So over here now we have a cancellation, and then we have a plus 1x squared minus 3x squared, which is negative 2x squared, bring down this minus 9 now, and we'll have minus 9x. And now we'll start off our cycle again. So x into minus 2x squared will give us minus 2x. Okay, multiply in then, and we get minus 2x squared plus 2x as minus 2x by minus 1 is plus 2x. So change the signs again. So we subtract. Okay, and then change the color just to keep track of everything. So that's negative now. So it'll be minus 9 minus 2 for the summation of the x's. So that's minus 11x. And that works out neatly as we bring down the 11. And we'll have a plus 11. So the final number will be minus 11. Okay, so that's the quadratic over here as part of the, which will contain 2 of the roots. Okay, so let's wipe this out and let's see what we have then. Okay, so we have my x squared minus 2x minus 11. We got to use our quadratic formula here because we got to put it in third form, remember? Okay, so we're going to start off with the quadratic formula. So every student knows this one in the leavens or third level, minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay, you can do it with complete the square as well if you want. All right, so let's look at the a, b, and c. So x squared minus 2x minus 11. So a is equal to 1, b is equal to negative 2, and c is equal to negative 11. So let's substitute them all in. So be careful with the signs. So we do minus b, which will be minus brackets minus 2. So always put brackets around the negatives. Plus or minus. Okay, that's the 2 roots. And then bracket out again, look. We have minus 2 squared minus 4 by a, which is 1, by c, negative 11. Okay, so your chapter and thirds will come in very useful here now because 2 by 1. Okay, so let's look at the numbers. So we're going to get x is equal to plus 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 plus 44, which is 48, over 2. So the 48 is 3 by 16, which is also equal to 4 root 3. Okay, so we could put it like this. You can do this in your calculator and do the change button, and we will get 4 root 3. Because remember, 48 is equal to 16 by 3. And we could put the product of the two thirds then. Okay, all over 2. And let's see what we get. We can divide it in by 2 and we get 1 plus or minus 2 root 3. And that's the answer up here. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can just go back over that and you can ask me in the comments. All right, so this one now was a pretty easy question from just at the start of the project maths phase. You know, I think they put it in just to make it life a little bit easier because the questions were so difficult at the start of the project maths 10 years ago. But let's look. So this is Pythagoras Theorem, obviously. We have a right angle triangle. So we're going to have to square out the brackets and find the value of x. So it's going to be a rational value, a real value, because it's going to be positive. We cannot get a negative result here because the actual side length will be a positive value. All right, so let's start off. So the hypotenuse is down here. So we could call that A, call this B and C then. Okay, so these questions are really basic. So you got to pick up the marks for these, okay, when you're doing them in the exams. So we'll just go A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared. And then 5x minus 9. So the Pythagoras theorem is always in the leave insert and true insert exams. It's always there, you know. So x minus 1 to b squared plus 4x squared. So be careful with that 4x now, because we're going to square it in its entirety. So the 2 or the square will actually apply to the 4 as well. So that would be a main source of error, where people just attaching the 2 up here and neglecting this one here. So that's not an option. We gotta square the entire length. So bracket it off, and that will give you the starting position. So if we square this out, 5x minus 90 squared. So let's do it real quick. So 5x squared is 25x squared, plus twice the cross multipliers. So 5 by 9 is 45, and 2 by 45 it will give minus 90x, and then 9 squared is 81. Okay, and then over here then, let's square this one out. And look, that's x squared minus 2x plus 1. And then this one here then, plus 16x squared. Okay, so we're nearly there. All we have to do now is bring everything to one side and solve the quadratic. So it should work out. So if we bring over the x squared and the 16x squared, we're bringing over a total of minus 17x squared. So that will give 25 minus 17, which will give 8x squared. Okay, so just do that in your head real quick. And then minus 90, and then minus 2. Bring it over, change the sign, so it'll be negative 88. Okay, and bring over the 1 then, so that'll be a plus 80. Okay, so I can see there that everything is divisible by 8, so just divide by 8. Okay, I'm doing this in my head now real quick, so we just have to go with the flow. So 8x squared minus 11x plus 10. So let's factorize this. So what two numbers will multiply to 10 and add to 11? Well, 10 and 1, and they're both going to be negative. Okay, so they're going to multiply to give a positive and add together to give a negative. So it'll be x minus 1 by x minus 10 is equal to 0, is equal to 0. So therefore, okay, the two solutions would be 1, okay, and 10. Okay, so now we got to check, okay, and this one it'll be taken out, and I'll show you why. Because if we put in 1 here, okay, x minus 1, okay, and therefore 1 minus 1 is equal to 0. So that will give a 0 output. Okay, so the answer there is 10. All right, so verify, so we just substitute in then. Okay, so that's too easy. All right, so let's see what's left. We can do this modulus here. Okay, this is the last one I'll do this evening now. Okay, and I hope you're following this and that you're going to take some learnings from it. Okay, it's a free service, so just subscribe to the channel, and I can maintain doing these free videos for students and help you with your studies. Okay, so let's look at the modules. So there's two things we could do here. We could graph it out, or else we could actually, just change the signs, and also we can actually square both sides, okay? Because remember, let's look at what a modulus means, okay? So if we have x and we square it, and then we square root it, we're always going to get x, okay? So remember that if we do that, that's really the modulus of x. So the modulus of x is also equal to plus or minus x. Because if you square the negative x, and then square root it, we will get plus x. And if we have plus x, we square it and square root it. So it really always would have two options, okay? So if we graph this, we could look at it as if it's like a V shape, okay? So the actual value where it crosses the x-axis would be plus 4. Okay, if that was a factor, then the root would be, the opposite sign. And you can see the slope there of the x is 1, okay? So it'd be like that, And then you see if you apply the modulus, instead of going down here, where it would hit minus 4, it actually reflects back up and it would hit the plus 4 then. So all the modulus graphs look like a V. Okay, because the output will always be positive. Remember, over here, this is what's really happening. So every value will be squared and square rooted, which will make it positive, whether you're starting at negative or positive. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right, so that's perfect. Now let's start off with the solution. So I would be more robust here and just square both sides rather than do plus or minus. That's the best way to go here, because then we can get back to what we know best. So we square both sides. Okay, so that means that we'll have x minus 4. We can put brackets around it now when we're squaring it. Okay, we don't want to make it look confusing with the modulus lines. Okay, and 2 squared over here. Gotta maintain square both sides. All right, so over here then we have x squared minus 8x plus 16. Okay, is greater or equal to 4. So let's bring it all together. Minus 8x. Bring over the 4 and change the sign. Be negative 4, so it'll be plus 12. Okay, so we're doing a lot of factoring this evening. So practicing these is going to get you really up to speed with your factoring. You know, it's so important to be fast at this for the higher level to reach that level of capability. So the factors which multiply to plus 12 are 6 and 2, and they also add to give a negative 8 when we put negative signs with them. So our solution here will be x is equal to 2 and also x is equal to plus 6. So they're going to be over here. So let's look at the graph here for a second. So if we go across at 2, you know, this level here, you see, that's our output. So this is like a line of level 2. So y is equal to 2. So it's going to intersect here before the v and then after the v. So it's symmetrical. So as it goes over 2 and up 2, then this would be 8 plus 2. And then it could go over 2 and up 2. Okay, and then that would be 6 then. Okay, so you can see the geometry there. Okay, so that's it for this evening. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you have any questions, just let me know.